Did you know there's a way to invest in Airbnbs and potentially eliminate capital gains taxes on your profits? Most aspiring Airbnb investors are so focused on finding the right property that they completely miss some of the most powerful wealth building strategies available. In today's episode, we're joined by an expert in qualified opportunity zones and 1031 exchange strategies created to help investors grow their portfolios and keep more of what they earn. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how opportunity zones work, why short-term rental investors are using them to build wealth with significant tax advantages, and how a 1031 exchange can stack on or be a standalone way to accelerate your own path to financial freedom. Let's jump in.
I'm really curious. We've been hearing about these qualified opportunity zones. What are those?
Oh, those are actually really neat. Qualified opportunity zones are basically areas where usually the federal government wants to encourage investment. It's mostly to revitalize areas that could use it, and they're really great. And there's actually a lot to be said about them specifically now, this last half of this year.
Tell me more.
Okay. Well, investors can invest in these QOZs, I call them. And in general, if you hold the property for 10 years in a QOZ, all of your capital gains are exempt. So say you've been deferring capital through 1031s for 15 years. You started when you were young, you had $100,000, you turned it into 150, you turned it into 3, you turned it into 5. You got really lucky, now it's, $800,000. But every time you got to go through a 1031 and you keep pushing back those capital gains taxes. If you put that in a property, in a qualified opportunity zone, and it's really simple. Once you come through that 10-year deadline, all of that is tax exempt.
Wow.
All of the
So
property.
how do you find a qualified opportunity zone?
Well, honestly, Google will tell you where they are. It's really that simple. But finding one and finding a good property in one isn't the same. I work with a company that does turnkey managed Airbnbs, and they do a combination of the tax reduction, the STR loophole, and they cash flow, and they're in opportunity zones.
How can our listeners work with you, Jeff, to find an already amazing Airbnb in a qualified opportunity zone?
They can contact me directly. I can be reached at jeff@reinvest.it. So it's reinvested, but there's a dot in the middle, reinvest.it.com. And that's also my website.
Okay. So many times we have clients and coaching mentees and different people that are like, I just need someone to push the easy button for me. I enjoy the thrill of the hunt. I want to find extra crispy, renovate it, do all the things. Cullen loves the numbers, the taxes, etc. But some people are like, I just want everything you're talking about without putting in all the legwork. So this sounds like the perfect way to get all of those things going for a minimal amount of effort.
Oh, absolutely. They've been doing this for 10 years. In one specific zone, they know the market, they know the pricing. And my general advice to anyone, and you guys have probably covered this, would be to make sure that you're properly operating your property. You need a really good staff, or you need to do an amazing job yourself.
Yes.
You need the team.
You need the team.
Talk a lot about the team.
All the different technologies in place to make sure that you're becoming guest favorite right away, at the top of search, maximizing your revenue. That's 100% in our wheelhouse.
Finding the right housekeeper and handyman. Jeff, what is a 1031 exchange?
Put simply, a 1031 exchange is a tax solution that allows you to take property that has appreciated, it's gained in value, and you can sell it. And when you sell a property that's gained in value, the government wants taxes on that gain. It's called the capital gain. It's basically the profit you made from when you bought it to when you sold it. And the 1031 exchange allows you to reinvest all of those funds, including your gains, including your profit, without paying taxes at that time. It's basically a tax deferment. You're pushing that tax further down the line, and it allows you to keep investing all of your money and growing it.
You mentioned capital gains. We did an episode recently on cost segregation and advancing depreciation. Is that depreciation able to carry through this same vehicle into the next investment?
Yes.
Like that's a double word score,
Yeah.
double tax score. All right. So who specifically is a 1031 exchange for?
Basically, anyone who's bought property, to put it in real simple terms, You bought property for $100,000. You're selling it a few years down the line. It's now worth $200,000. You've made $100,000 in capital gains. The government would like their 15 or 20%. If you do it the right way, then you can take all of that $200,000, and as long as you're investing at least all of that $200,000 in another property, which is, they call it like kind. That literally means almost any real estate property that's not going to be your personal home. If it's an investment or a business, it could be land, it could be an Airbnb, it could be a hotel, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as you're reinvesting everything that you pulled out of this property through a 1031 exchange, then you keep all of your gains for now. You've deferred all of your taxes on those gains. I don't know if you've ever heard buy, borrow, die.
Yes.
And it's what the rich do. Anyone can do it in theory. And what you do is you start as soon as you can and you invest in a piece of real estate and it appreciates. And then you 1031 it into another piece of real estate and that appreciates. And if you keep doing that and you're living off the income, because we have cash flowing properties, although sometimes we'll just go for a huge capital gain, if you keep reinvesting using 1031 exchanges, in the end, when you die, your children inherit all of it at the value at that time on the day of your death. And that is their new tax base. If they sell it the next day and it's worth $1 more, then they're only being taxed on that extra dollar.
So that $100,000 you invested initially in your 20s may be worth $2 million at your time of death, and no taxes are ever paid on that as it passes along to your heirs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's fantastic. Are there any rules or laws that our listeners should be aware of when it comes to 1031s?
Yes, and the most important thing in 1031s is deadlines. A 1031 it's a race, basically. From the day of the sale, you have 45 days to formally, officially identify the property you're going to buy. After that 45 days, you have another 180 days to actually close on the deal, to pay, to be the new owner.
So I've heard that before. Let me ask a specific question. Let's get into it a little bit. Let's say I identify a property, I get it under contract, and I don't close because they find something wrong in the appraisal. What's the timing of maybe identifying a second property? Do I have to identify that second property still within that same 45 days, or is there a way to extend that for identifying a second property because the first maybe fell through?
One of the things that I always recommend is to start early. It's very rare that someone discovers on a Monday that they have to sell their property and they sell it on Tuesday.
Right.
If you think you're going to sell something, start looking now, way before your 45-day window starts. Identify 2 or 3 properties, have a backup, officially identify them. Let me just talk for a second about a qualified intermediary. That's the other important thing in 1031s. You can't sell me your property, take possession of your $300,000, and then use it to buy another property in under 180 days. You have to engage something called a qualified intermediary, and it can't be your lawyer or your CPA. There's professionals that do this, but you do have to check them out because they're going to be sitting on all your cash.
Right. It's kind of like putting it in escrow.
Yes, it's a specific type of escrow, and you have to make sure that they're bonded and licensed and all that. And so you want to know who your QI is, your qualified intermediary, and you want to start looking for properties. And once you've looked at 2 or 3 properties, you do your initial due diligence. You said, okay, I'd really like this one. If this doesn't work, I'd really like that one. If that doesn't work, I'd really like this one. So you identify, and by identify, I mean you actually file notification with your QI. And you say, these are the 3 properties I'm looking at. I'm going to close on one of them within 180 days from my 45-day timeline. So you give them that notice, and then if you discover, termites or the foundation is sinking or whatever,
Build a hotel in front of your ocean view. I get it.
Exactly. So you have those few backups. And so if one doesn't work, you can go to the next one, but you do have to formally identify them within that 45 days. And that's a really great question.
So we ran into a situation just over the last 2 weeks where trying to sell wasn't the leading factor. The leading factor was we identified something we wanted to buy, and we were going to get it under contract, and we knew that we had a property in our portfolio that we could sell at a good profit and roll that money into the good, strong down payment and lower the mortgage payment for this new larger property.
So it would cash flow as an Airbnb.
Right.
Brilliant. You've identified it already. Now you have to start working with the professionals that you need to make sure you're in compliance with the 1031. You have to find a qualified intermediary. You have to check that your CPA and your attorney or whoever helps you with the conveyance is completely aware and familiar with all of the terms and conditions of how to structure this. And you have to make sure none of that money ever touches you guys.
Right.
All right, that's the most important thing.
We don't look good in orange. So yeah, we don't want the money to touch us. I'm not going to jail over this.
It won't be jail. You'll just lose a lot of taxes.
Okay.
All right. That's a great pitfall to avoid. Any other common mistakes that you see made in 1031 exchanges?
No, I think the biggest ones really are either screwing up the timeline or only identifying one or just not preparing. Once you know and you plan ahead, you make sure you have a qualified intermediary, you make sure none of that money ever touches you, and you stick to the deadlines, you should be fine.
You said plan ahead. What are some things that people can do as an investor to be prepared to get started for their exchange?
The biggest thing is just to find and identify the professionals you're working with. And so that would be the first thing that I would do.
And do you have a sniff test? Like, is there a phrase or just something to look out for to be like, this is not someone I should work with in the whole 1031 world?
Someone who hasn't done this, someone who doesn't respond to your questions from a place of experience.
Good track record.
Yeah, you don't want to be someone's first rodeo. Got it.
Yeah.
There are things you like to learn together, and there's certain things that you just need someone to already know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Again, kind of like a cost segregation analysis. We keep talking about the qualified intermediary. Is this an expensive process? I know it's obviously going to vary from company to company, but what are people looking at in terms of fees? Is this tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars?
It's usually between 1,000 and two for a single property. It's on par with the cost segregation, maybe a little cheaper. These are things that used to be more expensive because they used to be the realm of super high net worth people who are buying and selling entire apartment buildings. Everyone can do it. It's really negligible in terms of, you're selling a $300,000 house. It's another $2,000.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a rounding error. That's perfect.
Exactly.
Your background, I think, is absolutely fascinating. You were an attorney. AI was starting to make you obsolete. You're now a digital nomad, traveling with your family, and you've become an expert in 1031 exchanges. How many 1031 exchanges or deals have you helped structure in this new life path of yours?
Just going back a year, I've been involved in 10.
Okay.
These are either investors that came to me looking for a place to invest, and they weren't necessarily aware that a 1031 would be their best move, or they're investors that were working with my partner firms. And over the course of our work together, I explained to them how a 1031 would be in their best interest.
And we're seeing a lot of clients where CPAs are recommending that they get into short-term rentals for the passive carryover of losses. They're maybe own a long-term rental property that's not appropriate for a short-term rental, and they're selling that, doing 1031 exchanges into an Airbnb specifically for the increased cash flow and the increased tax benefits from the short-term rental loophole.
Yeah, actually, if for whatever reason you've taken possession of your cash, or you missed out on the deadline, or something else didn't work out, if you enter an STR and you use the loophole, which basically means to get a cost segregation study and front load all of those expenses, you can offset your gains even without the 1031. You can also offset high W-2 income. You can offset almost anything with those. It's really an amazing tool.
That's a good point. So if you didn't get your 1031, you're not out of luck on your tax savings because you can just do a cost segregation on this new property, pull all that depreciation forward, and nullify the potential of the capital gain from the sale of the first property. I like it.
Better living through real estate. I love it.
It's not a one-to-one. With a 1031, you're taking 200,000 out, you're putting 200,000 in a new property, and you've nullified all your taxes. If you're going to do the STR loophole, that STR that you buy has to be expensive enough so that at best 20 to 30 something percent of its total value is that tax deduction, and that's how you nullify your taxes.
All right, I've got one more question for you, kind of out of my own curiosity. We were talked earlier about the like kind investments, a rental property into a rental property or land for your business, or maybe even a building for your business. What about some of the side cases I've heard about, like Delaware statute trusts and mineral rights? Is that all fooey, or are there other investment vehicles that are still considered like kind that aren't necessarily, a rental property to a rental property?
Specifically, the ones you mentioned aren't going to be like kind because they are, well, the mineral rights is something completely different. But in a DST, you're holding partnership interest in a company. I'm not really an expert in DSTs, but I believe that a DST wouldn't work. But like kind does allow you to do almost anything else. It can be a building that you use for a business or for an investment. It could be raw land that you want to develop. It could be long-term housing, short-term housing, a hotel. As long as you are a direct owner of this, then that can work. It can't be your primary residence.
Bummer.
But there is a way, I just read about this, there is a way to turn your primary residence into an STR. And then after at least 12, but ideally 24 months, you can 1031 that on. But you have to leave the house completely and remove all your things and actually rent it out.
I've heard that too, that safe harbor of 12 to 24 months. How close is the IRS looking? Is it just in case they came looking? You just want to cover your bets?
I used to be an attorney, and so I'm always covered. If they say 24, go 24. It'll be cheaper for you to do it perfectly and not pay for an attorney or a CPA to dig you out of this hole. So I would cover myself with the 24 months. If the situation is that you really need out in 19 months, then go ask your CPA at the time what they think. Listen, this is what I would like to do. What are the chances that A, I get audited, B, what are the fines that I might have to pay? You just have to find out. As long as the consequence isn't an orange jumpsuit, as you said, you want to know.
Well, Jeff, this has been fun, enlightening. Not everyone can make 1031s make sense, be interesting, but I think all of our listeners, and definitely we, have benefited from your expertise. So thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys both. You guys have been lovely.
So there you have it. You now know what opportunity zones are, how to find them, how 1031 exchanges fit into the picture, and the key mistakes you need to avoid along the way. We've given you the scoop on stuff most investors haven't even heard of, much less understand. Should you need some further help understanding how to use Airbnb investing for cash flow and tax savings, that's what we do. Head over to hostcoach.co to schedule a free 30-minute discovery call with us. We absolutely love helping people on the path to living a life that they love. Remember, our joy is in your success.